The Heroes in a Half Shell have returned to the big screen in a celebrity fanboy passion project, and they've brought decades of references and Easter eggs with them. Let's lather up some ooze and jump into the sewers to see what our favorite adolescent reptiles brought. Lather up some ooze sounded cooler in my head. It doesn't take a great deal of intuition to not trust Cynthia Utrom in Mutant Mayhem, but if you're a longtime Turtle fan, you have a reason right there in her name. You broke my heart, Cynthia. Nope, wait, different Cynthia. Of course it's Ultron. That's the name of the species longtime villain Kang belongs to. Ultron get around on Earth by controlling human bots from the abdomen, so milking teenage reptiles is likely just the beginning of her villainy. One thing you learn about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles if you grew up with the cartoons eventually is that the kind of corny and lighthearted quartet is based on a relatively gritty independent comic book that was markedly darker and more violent. Any adaptation, the question becomes, which version is being adapted? And Mutant Mayhem stakes which version it favors with recreations of comic book images complete with wide-out eyes and toothy sneers. One of the ways the Ultron and even Shredder went about their nefarious goals was under the guise of a seemingly legitimate science organization called Techno-Cosmic Research Institute. TCRI were the sub-villains to Superfly and the Mutants, but that mid-credits call to Shredder? It appears they're set for center stage next go-around. Before the Turtles were a Nickelodeon thing, they were the creations of Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird for the indie comic imprint Mirage Studios. One of their main titles before the Ninja Turtles arrived was the Triceratons. They were Triceratop-looking aliens whose planet was destroyed and they found refuge in an asteroid. In the TMNT comics, the Turtles would be transported to their asteroid and end up with 3 Triceratons transported to Earth on their return. They've since appeared in other versions of TMNT, including as an orange logo on some vehicles in the movie. The one regular costume hero that the Turtles are most related to is Daredevil, with their original origins being a riff on Daredevil's. But if you're a teenage ninja with dreams of fighting crime, your go-to is gonna be Batman. The brothers give Leonardo a hard time for his gravelly, ominous voice, comparing him to Batman. But Bats and the Turtles go back. They've crossed over in the comics and in an animated film. When you have a team of heroes who have a love of pizza as one of their defining characteristics, getting that pizza product tie-in is clutch. Pizza Hut has held that honor for a while now, and continues in Mutant Mayhem as their favorite place to get pizza from, as well as doing a TV spot where the brothers are once again clowning on Leo for reciting the tagline, "No one out-pizzas the Hut," which makes me think of Pizza the Hut from Spaceballs every time. Not particularly appetizing, but I'm not the high-priced ad exec.
Everybody got that?
After taking syndicated television by storm, Nickelodeon eventually became the house of the Heroes in a Half Shell. Being teenagers, they make copious pop culture references, including some of their Nickelodeon stablemates. In one of my favorite asides, one of them tells Michelangelo that his head looks like Hey Arnold and Stewie's head, from Family Guy, had a baby. When the Turtles appear in Times Square, one of the costume characters is SpongeBob SquarePants. There was another cameo in the movie that was anticipated by some. The person who grabs Splinter's ears and discovers that they're real was voiced by YouTuber Mr. Beast, who managed to turn counting to 100,000 into a lucrative YouTube career. What better way for an iconic 80s creation to have a moment than by watching another iconic 80s movie, Ferris Bueller's Day Off? Of course, the parade scene is the most recognizable scene, but they chose the first half of that scene where Ferris lip-syncs Dankeschön. Why does this matter, other than Dankeschön is probably cheaper than Shake It Up? It's because during that song, Cameron and Sloan talk about Ferris's ability to fit in anywhere and Cameron's inability to fit in at all, echoing the ennui of the mutant teenagers. Layers within layers. You could do a whole video about the many awkward and cringy career steps of Robert Van Winkle, aka Vanilla Ice. He also managed to make Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles one of the sillier entries in the live-action trilogy, that also saw them going back in time to Japan and being mistaken for Kappas. During the final fight, they spill into a Vanilla Ice show, who performs the ninja rap for the fight. The early 90s took a minute to shake off the weirdness of the 80s. The song plays briefly over a car radio when one of the Turtles lands in a parked car during a fight. At a certain point, the Ninja Turtles gave up stealth and subtlety with branding, driving their turtle-themed turtle van. While the van itself doesn't appear, the Turtles dip a toe in that van life, getting in 2 car chases with 2 different vans, including a yellow pizza delivery van reflecting the Turtle van's color scheme. As mentioned before, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles began life as a gritty independent comic, taking its premise as seriously as possible, which became part of its charm. But when it was licensed to Playmates in 1987, it needed a more family-friendly touch. Enter an obsession with pizza and the surfer slang term Cowabunga as a catchphrase. How did the Turtles in New York end up adopting California slang and accents? Don't worry about it. Cowabunga makes a reserved appearance in the movie as the demutating device gets dropped in Mega Superfly's blowhole. Blowhole. Always sounds silly. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles have a long history of different interpretations, from different comic book volumes to the various cartoons and animated features. The history of the various designs accompany the credits. Shredder didn't really start as the biggest villain for the Turtles, but you always remember your first. He was defeated and killed in the first issue of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but would later return as a bunch of worms that got together and believed they were Shredder thanks to Shredder's Foot Clan magic. The cartoon, however, needed a main rival, and what better one could there be than a ninja covered in blades? I mean, Joker started off as a one-and-done villain as well. Shredder, of course, is shown as a tease in the end credits. Being teenagers, the Ninja Turtles littered their dialogue with various pop culture references. Donatello comes up with the way to beat final boss Superfly via the anime Attack on Titan. There's the Family Guy reference mentioned earlier. Megamind and Despicable Me both get name-dropped evaluating Superfly's evil plan. Shrek and the Geico Lizard are both mentioned as bad guys try and come to terms with turtles that are also ninjas. Avengers Endgame and JoJo's Bizarre Adventures also get name-dropped. Of course, the long tradition of sneaking the creators in somehow was honored. They talk to April under a Laird sign for Peter Laird, and the high school is Eastman High for Kevin Eastman. Even though Baxter Stockman appears, still no Mousers. Mousers are underutilized.
You know, you win some and you lose some.